Alrighty, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good Friday. If you're watching this on the replay, I appreciate you. If you're here live, I hope you have had and are having a good Friday. So this is going to be something that I'm just testing out to incorporate doing a live stream on Fridays, kind of recapping anything that I have discussed or that maybe has happened that I haven't made a video about, where we can kind of come together and discuss it and talk about our opinions about everything. This week we're kind of combining some of my content from last week and stuff that I've covered this week. So I have it titled a few different topics that we'll be discussing today. The first topic that I kind of wanted to talk about was the LilTay stuff. I haven't made a video, and I'm probably not going to. Some of you guys have reached out to me when all of this stuff was coming out on social media if I would cover it, because you know of other topics I've covered similar to it and my background. People were requesting that I look into it, and I did do some research, and I also watched some other creators' content about the situation. And I have some opinions, as I'm sure most people do, and I'm not sure if they're going to be popular opinions or not, but I am going to talk about that first. Hey, T King, how are you? I'm going to try to not swivel, but it's hard for me when I sit back to not swivel. So if you don't know who LilTay is, she is, I think she's like 11 or 12 now, but she kind of became popular in 2018 for being very outlandish in some videos. Her whole internet persona was her being a young girl, 8, 9, having money, yelling obscenities, kind of degrading other people who don't have money. And she did take off. Hey, Lisa. She did take off, and she gained a lot of followers. I believe she's got like over 2 million followers on Instagram. And she was the talk for a while, but then she kind of fell off and nobody really knew what was going on. Well, in recent times, it seems her brother, his name is Jason, has started utilizing her platforms and putting out information and started a GoFundMe. And he's saying that he's only doing it now because he is of age. He's 18 and he can speak out now. So that's why he is now coming out with all of this information. He's showed pictures, which I'm not going to show anything. This is just going to be a discussion with you guys. But there are pictures of LilTay having red marks on her face and stuff like that. And the pictures are concerning. I've seen them. They are concerning. However, what is being alleged by the brother for the reason of the marks, really, from my experience, don't 100% line up. We also have to look at the aspect that LilTay is not talking out, and she's not said anything about any of this. It's all being talked about from her brother. And I'm not saying that there's not any room for concern, because there is information that there were concerns with the father's household before. So I don't want to dismiss that. But what's being pushed currently, and looking at the brother's history, for me, it's concerning that he is manipulating a situation. So for me, my opinion on the LilTay stuff is I'm really on the fence. I don't want to say that it's not happening, because that can be damaging. But at the same time, if you look at the brother's history and the fact that he coached her to say a lot of the derogatory things he was saying to build fame and to have her have a following, it's not a far stretch to me that he would maybe contrive something like this in hopes to have LilTay back in the household with him and his mom. So overall, I'm not really a fan of this being lashed out on social media. I think the brother is making this a public issue, and I really don't think it should be one. If he wants to try and insert himself and get attorneys and file for custody or whatever, why bring it to social media except for to garner money? And there's been a concern by a couple of other channels who have talked about her that he all of where Tay is at, everything in the courts is kind of done through Canada, and he's doing it on the American side, which is possible. It just is very fishy, and I'm not going to jump and make a video saying that this dad's a terrible dad, because we only see so much, and the dad has released some things publicly, and there is some information showing with photograph evidence and stuff that maybe he wasn't taking the utmost care of Tay when she was younger, but we're only getting one side. And without hearing from the actual child involved, which I don't believe we should, she's a minor, I'm kind of, I don't really, after looking into her kind of being pushed into the role she had on social media, I am not, what's the right word? I'm not pleased. Not that it's, you know, they're not here to please me, but I have some pretty strong stances on minors and having social media followings, and it can be dangerous. And if you're not having supervision when you are on social media at a young age, I think it can be far more damaging than it can be anything else. And for all we know, the dad maybe wanted to regain custody of the child because of what was being put out on social media, and because he was maybe worried about her. No one's really talking about that aspect from what I've seen. And I think a lot of people don't talk about it from that standpoint, because there is information and like police reports and stuff like that saying that the dad wasn't giving her adequate lunch, and there is screenshots to prove that. So I get the concern, but it's just one of those stories where I'm very much just going to sit back and wait and see if anything comes out, because I could see it going either way. So that's where I'm at with that. Hey, Lily. Hey, Claire. Hey, Police Wife Life. Hey, Kelly. Hey, Tutu Queen. I'm not sure how to say your first name, Kumar. But there's not any animation in my backdrop. It's just a backdrop that is moving because of my AC. Hey, Melissa. All right, the next thing that I figured we could kind of talk about, and people may have more opinions on, the Phillippi stuff. I made a quick, brief video about what happened with their dog Bowser. And I stated in that video, I don't typically talk about animals and cruelty to animals, because it's a conversation that just really is hard for me to have, especially in that particular scenario with what decision that they've made. They carelessly, in my opinion, made. But I can't help, and a lot of people are digging into, like, after this, they're digging into their old vlogs, and they're showing information that contradicts what these people were claiming. I don't understand their overall choice. It's not going to ever make any sense to me. Being someone who has had to make that choice out of selfless reasons because my dog was sick, I know how hard it was in that moment when I've had to really sit down and like talk with myself and take myself out of the equation for the betterment of the dog. But in their scenario, there was no alternative to them. They didn't even try to find an alternative. And that's what was really upsetting. And I appreciate the other people who are talking out about this, and the larger creators who are talking out about it, because it shows the carelessness of these people. It has been brought to my attention, and I'm sure most of you guys may know, if you've watched anybody covering the Phillippi family, about their adoption that ended up not happening. I have watched a good bit of their video, and I am going to make a video about it, so I'm not going to go too in depth with that. But I was appalled. The first like 10 minutes of that video, my jaw was on the floor. Based off of their behavior, what they were saying, their excuses for everything. And the whole reason they didn't end up going through with the adoption through Thailand is because they couldn't have the child on camera. That's just beyond me. You could have, if you really cared about adopting a child from Thailand and that's where you wanted to adopt from, you would make the adjustments. Which to me, it seems like 2 to 3 years ago, international adoption must have been on and popping on YouTube, because that's around the time frame that the Stoffers did their whole international adoption shit. And I think there's probably more family vloggers who have participated in trying to internationally adopt a few years ago. I have a feeling that it was just something that people were really looking into and people were interested in watching those style videos. And it goes to say a whole heck of a lot more to these creators. And for someone, myself, who's adopted, if you don't know, I'm adopted, it sparks a different kind of rage, because adoption is not anything to be taken lightly. And these family vloggers who have engaged in this kind of behavior are toying with an innocent child. Whether they have trauma or not, you are messing with a child's emotions. And I am so happy that this agency that they were working with a few years ago put down the law for them that you can't monetize and parade the child around, because disruptions in adoption do happen. They are 100% real for a number of reasons, a number of circumstances. It is for the safety and the betterment of the child to not exploit them on your freaking YouTube channel. But these people can't seem to get it through their thick heads why it's a concern. They're sitting there laughing in the first half of this video, kikiing it up, that could you, like, gawking at the idea that they couldn't have the child on camera. I'm just like, I'm waiting until, I haven't filmed it yet because I'm waiting until my emotions kind of drop down a little bit before I talk about it, because it probably won't be well received. My emotions will be way too heightened if I were to try and film it now. I just watched that video like 2 days ago, I believe, and I'm still just like utterly disgusted. Hey, Stina, good to see you. Or they wouldn't want to do foster care because they were told they wouldn't be able to spank their children. I mean, is that so freaking baffling to people that you shouldn't spank a child who's probably come from trauma? I mean, their amazement to some of these rules is just mind-boggling to me. And maybe it's because I have experienced the system personally and I've worked with the system as a professional. I don't know. It's just their reactions are like, are you really that ignorant? And I don't mean that in a negative way, but like, where's your common sense? Did you not do your research? Did you not understand what adoption is, where these children oftentimes are coming from, situations they're coming out of? It's just so shocking. You think there is a difference in people going on YouTube to get extra money to help with adoption versus people adopting to put it on YouTube to make money? Yeah, I can understand that differentiation. And I'm not saying that every creator who has ever talked about their adoption on or their plans to adopt online are doing it nefariously. But when you have them on video, like totally laughing and shocked at the idea and saying that they're no longer adopting from that country for the sole fact that they can't have them on the internet and not being able to really understand why it's a big deal, is so surprising. Any child that's in the system, most states have it in place that you can't film them, you can't photograph them, you can't talk about them by their names, because they're in custody for a reason. And some families, when children are removed from families, will go the extra mile. And I can say from me, when I was in foster care, I gave my maternal grandma, who was French and didn't speak a lick of English, the information to one of my foster homes because I didn't know any better. And man, did she blow that phone up. She called all the time and she wasn't supposed to. It was against the court order for her to contact me outside of supervised visits. And that's my personal experience with it. There's a solid reason why states have in place to keep these children protected. And if you can't fathom that, if you can't understand that, then I really think you need to second guess your morality and what is pushing you to think you should adopt a child. Because in my opinion, people who adopt are wonderful people, but people who are adopting for nefarious reasons, whether it be because of YouTube or be because of state help, I can't even think of a term to relate to those people that would be appropriate to say. They're making adoption something trendy to do rather than a serious, important discussion. I think so. And looking at the time frame, it seems to be that it was a trendy thing to do and to talk about a couple of years ago by family blogging. You don't agree with spanking any children, but it shocks me that spanking kids is that important to them. Yeah, that you bring up a valid point there, Melissa. Like, why does it matter so much if you're able to physically punish your child? You know, like, I don't understand that. I don't understand the aspect of feeling that you have to have the ability to spank them. There's a lot of studies going either both ways that spanking can be beneficial, and there's studies showing that spanking can be negative and have a negative impact. It all has to do with children and their development and their understanding. Spanking does not work with the new generation of kids. The Phillippis are gross in your opinion? Yeah, I mean, they've done a lot of really gross things, and they do these things and think it's okay to just, it's like they don't even think about what they're saying or how it's going to come off to the general public. And that's what's the most shocking about them, about other family bloggers, about larger creators in general, is they seem to be so detached from reality and from what it actually is like in life to be an average, middle class, everyday person. It seems that they lack the ability to see that reality for people, and they just flaunt around their lavish lifestyles and act like they're the happiest people on earth, making people want to be just like them. And it's disgusting. Your friend had their son for 3 years and was just able to post pictures online because his adoption was finalized. People are ignorant about things, and it's sad. Yeah, people really, I am more and more, like, since last year with the stopper stuff, I am finding it more and more that people don't know anything about adoption and how it works, and it's different everywhere, which is why I haven't sat down and made a video, because my knowledge and my experience and my professional experience with adoption is only centered around one state, and I don't know if that would be beneficial to anybody for me to talk about it. And in order to have a well-rounded conversation, I would much rather look at all different kinds of states and their laws around adoption. In the US, I would imagine that they're pretty similar, but I'm not 100% sure. You found an extremely interesting clip where she says, not joking, she got the idea from adopting from IG before they didn't want kids. Well, that's just disgusting. If that's true, that's disgusting. Hitting kids doesn't teach anything except, yeah, it can. It really does depend on the developmental stage of the child and their understanding of why they are getting spanked. It's like they have no clue what they're doing is wrong. Yeah, it does. Like I said, it's like a detachment. spanking seems to correct behavior not because the kids learn why the behavior is undesirable, but out of fear. Yeah, and that's when, like, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but that's when the development comes into play, is knowing where the child's at developmentally and cognitively, if they can even understand the reason that they're being spanked and why. If they can't, you probably shouldn't be spanking. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to parent their kids. But if your child can't understand what a spanking is or why they're getting a spanking and actually be able to verbally have that discussion, I would encourage you not to use physical punishment. You're going to do a video, include that clip. Let me know when you post it. Oh, it's really early where you're at, Michelle. Super, super early. So that's where I'm at with the Phillippis. A video will come out. It'll probably come out next week. I'm going to try and film it this weekend or Monday to have it go out on Tuesday, but I can't promise that date. It will hopefully be out next week. You don't agree with hitting a child ever. You wouldn't hit an annoying coworker, so why hit your own child? Yeah, I understand that. And I'm on the fence. Like, I don't have children, but if I did, I would not use corporal punishment. But it's a parenting choice. It really is. Working with the state the way that I did, it's a parenting choice. And there are limits. There's definitely limits. So I don't want to talk too much about their actions with Bowser other than what everybody else thinks, that it's absolutely disgusting. What's interesting is I did have a couple of comments on that video saying that the dog deserved it. Those got deleted. I'm not going to allow that kind of comment to be on my channel because I wholeheartedly disagree. And there was someone else who linked someone else's video saying that, I didn't watch it because I don't even want to hear somebody try to justify what they did. But they linked someone else's video where they were justifying their choice. Their choice is not justified. In my opinion, strongly, it's not a justified action. They could have taken so many different alternatives, and with videos that Britt has done and few other people have done, where they're showing old clips of how the dog actually was. And I understand what we see is only part of the story, but that should leave enough doubt for people to understand that they very easily could be lying. He did not appear, from anything that we've ever seen of this dog, to be aggressive. And I'm not foolish in thinking and saying that he probably wasn't aggressive at all. I have a dog. My chocolate lab is food aggressive. So he gets locked in his crate when he eats his dinner, because I know he is, I know he can get grumpy. He's never bit anybody or even bit any of our other, like Paisley. He's never actually done anything, but he will vocalize, leave me alone when I'm eating. So he gets put in his own space while he eats, and he knows that. When I ask him if he's ready to eat, he goes and he sits in his crate. I mean, as dog owners and parents, you have to adjust to your animals just like you have to adjust to your children. There's a responsibility factor there that didn't seem to be happening on either aspect when it came to the situation that they were referring to what happened. It seemed like they weren't supervising their child when their dog was eating, even though they knew the dog was aggressive when it came to food. I mean, okay, why weren't you there? Why were you not redirecting your child? He's a toddler. He's not going to understand. But that's when you as a parent kind of need to step in and ensure that the two can commingle. And if it can't happen and you knew it wasn't going to work out, Why was it when you were pregnant, you weren't trying to find an alternative home for this dog? Why is it when an incident did happen, it wasn't trying to find an actual resource or trying to find a home without kids and a home without other dogs or a humane society or a no-kill shelter? I mean, they had a number of options. They chose the one that they couldn't take away. And then they tried to validate it. They tried to manipulate their audience with all of this stuff. Meanwhile, in the video, they're doing nothing but showing cute clips of the dog. Like it's almost a memoriam to the dog that they took away its life for a valid, like the reason's not valid. I understand it happened and it was a concern of theirs, but they could have kept them separate until plans were made. It just didn't, they didn't seem to care. Hey, Xylee, how are you? Hey, Janelle. Your son has severe nonverbal. I don't want to say his diagnosis out loud. You don't use speaking because he doesn't understand what's going on. Absolutely, and that makes sense. You have to adjust to your children. I'm surprised at how unprepared they were for having a baby with pets, much less an alleged aggressive dog. I'm not going to, with all the clips and videos I've seen of this dog, I am not going to outwardly say that he was aggressive anymore. I'm going to put allegedly because there's not enough video proof, whether from them or anyone else, that this dog was actually aggressive. It seems quite the opposite. Baby gates, preparation, adjust, all things. Yeah, like one of the things that I have is Paisley is a husky. They're bred to run. They're extremely intelligent. They're escape artists. It's known about the breed. So what we do, because she has escaped before, I'm not going to say, she never has. She's 6 years old. She definitely has like slipped out of the door. In previous homes, she's been able to get out of our backyard. Luckily here, that's not an option. But we have like a huge baby gate and it's tall. It's up to my waist. If she wanted to, she could jump it, but she doesn't because she knows that that's a boundary. They are not allowed on the front half of our house because they will run. She will run. I make adjustments to my dogs. I don't go on trips because I have the dogs. And I'm a weird dog owner where if somebody can't stay with them in their space, I'm not going somewhere. If it's not somebody I trust, I'm not going anywhere. Hey, Christophan. Hey, ambulance girl. You have 260-pound Great Danes and you've trained them from puppies not to be bothered about food. Yeah, I've always tried to take that stance. We got Whiskey when he was, I think, 10 weeks old. And I don't know if it was something from where he was at, if he came from a puppy mill or something like that. I don't know. But he was one that he just wasn't having it. And I'm not going to stress him out to correct the behavior when I can work around it. Yeah, I agree, Stina. Oh, they're vegan? See, I don't know that. I haven't looked into them that much. That's interesting that they're vegan and that's an action that they took. He's 16. You've been watching him since he was 7. Yeah. Well, I'd be interested in maybe that's well, I don't know. I'm not going to say that out loud. But I think technology in ways for children and teenagers who are nonverbal, I think technology has been really great for them to be able to communicate if they want to be able to and learn how to do that at their own free will. I think it's a really awesome tool that has, come about in more recent years. Is there any other topics that you guys want to talk about? We will talk about Msashycat, but I'm going to wait to talk about that. Is there any other topics that you guys have seen that I didn't include that you want my opinion on or you want to have a discussion about? I know there's like a short delay. Not all dogs can be unbothered. Yeah, you work with what you have. Exactly. I mean, and that's just the reality of humans and animals. Like we all have things that we're predisposed to, and it's how we work with them, how we navigate around any obstacles that we have. I'm glad he's happy, and I'm sure his loudness probably can be loved and hated at the same time, depending on when that happens. All right, I don't see any topics coming in. If you guys have any, feel free to leave them as we go into this next topic. This next topic, I'm sure most of you guys have seen the video I put out a couple of days ago, and I stand by that video. I am not going to put out any recorded content talking about her or her situation or anything like that, because I don't think it's going to be beneficial. And as I said in that video, I'm open to having live streams and having open discussions because I see the comments on those videos of people having concern, of people who are in their own recovery and wanting to talk about their own recovery. And I think that there could be positive conversations to be had. But overall, the situation is getting way more concerning. It is getting dangerous. I mean, it's been dangerous from the jump, but it's getting more dangerous now that there has been some comments left on people's videos and things like that, talking about the dark part of the internet being involved. And that's scary. It's scary no matter which way the dark parts are coming from. There's also, I haven't seen them because I don't want to see it, but there's allegedly some Facebook groups out there that have nefarious backings for supporting her. And that is so gross, so disgusting, so deplorable. Any negative word you could associate fits those Facebook groups if they exist. There are some nasty people online, and knowing that that information is now openly out in the public, people are openly talking about that side of it, it's sad. It's really sad. And the whole situation is sad. And the fact that some people may be getting their rocks off watching that is heartbreaking. The content is so scary, and why these platforms haven't intervened is the ginormous question. And I doubt we ever get an answer unless it's a reactionary answer because something happens. And I hope so much, and all the time I'm constantly hoping that the denial will stop and that help will be sought out. I know I have contacted people on the back end to try and see if there were ways to get her assistance, but she clearly doesn't want it. And that's a hard reality of people who are in addiction. And it's scary because it's happening publicly. And it seems to be that there are people who are, I don't want to say that people are so naive that they can't see what's actually happening. I see people saying things and like defending some of the actions, behaviors, and words that come out of her mouth. And I question those people and their own morals when they won't even acknowledge it. It is really sad, really scary, and I'm open to allowing people to talk about it and to talk about their concerns, but doing a deep dive video is not going to do anything. If anything at all, it's just going to drive people who maybe weren't aware to the content, which is in turn allowing what's happening to continue to happen. So it's one of those things where you're kind of, as a creator who wants to try and bring awareness and talk about it and have discussions about active addiction and things like that and what behaviors can come of that, it's hard to navigate where the line is. So at this point, I'm not going to do any video about it. I'll talk with you guys in live streams about it if it's something you guys want to talk about, because it's going to continue. That's the sad reality, is until she's not going to stop going live, she's not going to stop doing what she's doing until it's taken from her. And at the rate things are going and how everything's panning out currently, that's not going to happen anytime soon. And I know that's sad to say, but it's true. Hey, Melody, good to see you. Hey, Irish's wife. Yeah, I know that I didn't know it was happening last night, but law enforcement is constantly called, and I see both sides of the comments when it comes to law enforcement, people being frustrated that they're not doing anything. Legally, they have no grounds, and law enforcement is there to uphold the law. If laws aren't being broken, she's a person. It's not against the law to be in your apartment and be under the influence. I mean, is it scary? Yes, but it's not against the law. And unless they see paraphernalia or substances laying around, they have no grounds to do anything. I've had a couple of people ask about involuntary holds and things like that. They do exist. I don't know what the laws are in Maryland for that. It's pretty hard to get somebody involuntarily held when it comes to substances. Even when it comes to mental health, involuntary holds, depending on the state, can be pretty hard to actually have go through. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. And that's a part of the conversation that a lot of people aren't really having. But it's an angle that I think most people who are in the recovery community or who have worked with the recovery community are aware of. And I'm sure people have tried to take that stance, but it's really hard. In my professional experience working with addiction and child welfare, I had only seen it happen on a couple of occasions. It's really hard to have stuff like that go all the way through in the courts. And most often, the times that I have seen it be successful is when there is a family member that is going and doing the filings. It's hard when there's a whole bunch of strangers online seeing the behavior. It's extremely triggering. And what has become a little bit more frustrating for me, and what has made me even more want to retract, is some channels are picking up this situation and I see them covering it, and I don't think that their intention is the best. And that is me assuming, but if you don't understand the full situation, if you're not researching and understanding the full parameters of what all is going on with that situation, I have a concern in how you're going to discuss it with your subscribers. It's one of those topics that I do want people to talk about, to bring awareness to it. But it's about how you go about delivering that and how you go about having the conversation. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying I'm doing it the best way, because I'm sure people have criticisms about how I've covered it. And I'm open to the criticism. And I can acknowledge where a lot of it is that talking about it just pushes people to it. And I can acknowledge that. And in my attempts to not allow that to continue, I only want to have open discussions with you guys when you guys are bringing it up, or if something severe happens, or something that I feel very strongly about wanting to talk about with you guys regarding that situation, then I will make it a topic to talk about. But it's just, it's become extremely frustrating for me to not want to, I guess in a way, I'm not trying to gatekeep, but it kind of feels like, I almost feel like to a degree, it kind of comes off that way, if that makes sense. Like, I want people to bring awareness and talk about it, but I want them to be able to do it in a respectful and mindful manner. And I've just seen a handful of channels really miss the mark with that. And I just don't understand. I don't understand if it's because they don't know the full situation, or if they're just doing it for nefarious reasons to, garner subs, garner views, which, it's nobody's place to judge, but I can voice my opinion that I think that that's disgusting. That's just kind of where I'm at with that. Yeah, there's so many concerns with everything regarding that situation. Some people enjoy watching the train wrecks. The unfortunate part, I'm going to put some lip gloss on. I actually put a liquid lipstick on, and it's drying my lips out. The unfortunate part is there are some people who really are concerned and are wanting to bring awareness and stuff like that to it. But there are people who are trolling her. There are people who I'm sure, are harassing her. I've seen clips of other people's content, because I was making the mistake of watching her content while it was live, because I was in, this is ignorant. If you want to call me ignorant for it, that's fine. I didn't realize you could monetize a live during the live. I thought the only time live streams could be monetized was after the fact. Since I have learned that that is a thing, I don't watch her live streams. I watch other people's content who reload, or other people who are restreaming. I'm not a huge fan of restreaming, but if something is brought to my attention, like, hey, did you know this is going on? I will go pop onto one of those channels or one of those TikTok pages to see what they're referring to. But there has been a clip that I've seen where she called law enforcement because she was scared of a situation, and her phone, she spoke her phone number out on the live because she was calling 911. She says she was fearful of her life, and it wasn't something she was thinking about. And her phone immediately was being blown up. You cannot tell me you have good intentions and want her to seek help if you're going to sit there while she's on a live stream and call her back to back to back to back to back, thinking that you're going to make a difference. That's trolling. That's harassment. So when she says she's being trolled and she's being harassed, it is happening. We have to acknowledge that it's happening. Now, are everybody that she talks about or alleges is a troll? Absolutely not. She says Tara is a troll, and Tara is not a troll. So part of that, I think, is just her reality is blurred, and because she does get as much pushback as she does, she just thinks anybody talking about her situation are coming from a bad place. And that's not true. Almost 98% of the people talking about her and her situation, I think, are coming from a good place. But there are some that have even been exposed on TikTok that were lying about stuff and lying about situations involving her. So for me, like, you really need to be able to, if you're going to cover this and you do have good intentions, you really need to go down the rabbit hole and understand the ins and the outs as much as you can of what's going on with the situation, and try your best to only refer what information is factual, because there is a lot of false narratives and false things being put out. I will say that her scamming her audience, that's not false. I've seen that happen firsthand in the playbacks and before, when I was actually watching her lives, where people would pay for a tarot reading and they would be sitting there for days on end expecting their reading. And it seems to be, from what I have seen watching other people's playbacks, she's only getting about 1 or 2 readings in her evening lives. I'm sorry, if she's trying to run a business, and I understand the addiction and like why she behaves the way she does, I understand that. But if you're trying to run a business, you can't expect people to pay and not get what they paid for. They're paying for a reading, so you need to give them their reading. If it's going to be a delay, you need to let them know it's going to be a delay. And there's constant contradictions of, oh, I have a list, 10, 20 people in line, but she'll start her lives or whatever saying, I'm going to do the readings, I'm going to do the readings. And then she is doing triggering stuff for an hour and a half or whatever before she even gets to a reading. And it's, from what I have gathered from people in tarot, it's not legitimate. Not saying she doesn't have the ability to read the cards, because I've had people say that, no, she really does have the gift to read tarot cards, but because her mind is altered, the readings she is currently doing are invalid. Yeah, she started going on this kick with calling her readings being donations. And a lot of that is because, from my understanding, she's in assisted housing. I don't know what kind of assisted housing. I've gotten different information and I've tried to figure it out, but it's not 100%, it's not really my business what kind of housing she's in. So I stopped trying to dig, because it's none of my business. She's put it out there that she's in assisted housing. So when you're in assisted housing, there are certain rules and programs that you're following to maintain that housing. And if she's in low income housing, which, based off her saying that she's getting donations, I would assume that she's in a low income house, and you can't you can't make more than a certain amount from business expenses or through your job, because then you have to claim that money, and that goes as income, which can kick you out of low income housing. That is just my assumption based off of the information that's out there. It's a little bit contradictory to say you have to pay a certain amount in a donation to get the service. Like, that's not the definition of a donation. And legality wise, if anything were to happen legality wise with her and her tarot card stuff, that could come back and nip her in the behind, trying to put off that she's running a business off of donations. Like, you can't do that. That's weird. And the way she talks to people who are paying customers is astounding, but we have to remember why. She's not in a good state of mind. She is not able to think rationally or clearly. She can hardly stand up. So combine that with the actual trolls and the actual harassment she gets, it explains, like I said in my video, it's not an excuse, but it does explain why she lashes out the way she does. Is it okay? Absolutely not. Is it okay to threaten minors? Absolutely not. Is it okay to sit there and engage in the behavior she's engaging in? In my opinion, absolutely not. But she is a person of free will, and until one of these platforms steps in, it's going to continue. And the sick people that are fueling this on these alleged Facebook groups and potentially the dark internet, it's just shocking. It's totally shocking that a little YouTuber like me can be aware, and I know there's other people who are aware of like the ins and outs of this, can be aware of this stuff and be notifying people who hopefully can do something about it and get no response. And I honestly think like this is the elephant in the room, is that nothing's going to happen. Her platform's not going to be taken from her. I understand there's petitions running around. There have been petitions running around for a while. It's nothing new that petitions are being created. There's been some in existence for a while. If you feel obligated to find them, they're on the subreddit. Find them and sign them. The problem is, how many times do we see petitions that get massive amounts of signatures and then it gets pushed out to whatever platform and absolutely nothing is done about it? Look at the Stauffer situation. The only time YouTube seems to actually do something is when they are reacting to like mainstream media, like with the Onision stuff, with the Eugenia Cooney stuff. She went unmonetized for a short, brief period. Even with these massive influencers, James Charles, with these massive influencers, they're not doing anything until mainstream media says, hey, this is a freaking problem and it's happening on your platform. Do they then try to be reactionary and suspend, or from what I've seen from like the really heinous stuff, is they're just suspending monetization, and the creators are appealing them and getting monetization back in a lot of circumstances. It's hopeful because it would cut off, you know, the triggering aspect of her content. It would cut off some of her financial supply. But if she's not going to do it here, she's going to find a different platform to go to. That's the reality. No, Melanie. I mean, she does have family, but she's not in any kind of good standing with any of her family. That's the super, like, even more sad part about it, is her family doesn't care. And it's really sad. And like, she's told stories that talk about some of her trauma, and it's hard. Right, Sense? Yeah, Onision's a whole freaking mess. Bye, Michelle. Hey, Dr. Addiction. I'm going back up and seeing what you guys are saying. I'm sorry, I wanted to get everything out. You wish she had someone to help her. So allegedly, from what I have gathered, she does have real life friends. The question becomes, are they doing what they can? And we don't know. If you have never been in active addiction or been close with someone in active addiction, it's hard to really understand her behaviors and her situation and why she does things, and the fact that she could have real life friends encouraging her and urging her to not go on live under the influence, encouraging her to get help, encouraging her to get sober, but it's ultimately her decision. It's crappy. It's not what people want to hear, but it's true. And it's the reality of what addiction can look like. Does it look like that for everybody? No, it doesn't. But when you start getting an addiction of some really potent stuff, oftentimes it ends up in scenarios similar to what we see unfold. Hey, Hooked on Phonics works for me. How are you doing? Does the offer still stand? Yeah, you can offer me at any time. You can email me at any time. It may take me a few days. I'm terrible about checking my email associated with my channel, but I will get back to you. Honestly, not really sure. Some people about making bets on, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what's going on in Facebook groups and allegedly in the dark interwebs. There's also been, Tara has talked about it. Britt mentioned it to me, and T-Spiracy talked about it, her getting a comment. They all have gotten a comment from someone posing or is somewhat a part of like the anonymous people, threatening action to wipe people's platforms. And in most cases, it seems that the threat that is there is veiled towards Ashley, and they're asking for the message to be relayed to her by them posting that comment. I personally haven't gotten one. Good. I'd rather not have a comment like that. But that's another aspect of it, is there's like weird stuff about the entire scenario and the entire situation. Sorry, I keep playing with my hair. It's at a length where it's just super annoying. Some don't understand that extreme addictions affect the cognitive function in the brain. They can't make life-altering decisions. A lot are affected even if they don't notice it. Exactly. And there's also, I mean, Ashley has talked about being diagnosed with some mental health. So I would imagine she would need like a dual diagnosis type program. And those, they're not difficult to come by, but it speaks even more to some of the behaviors that we see if what she is saying about her diagnoses are factual. If there's any, if like she actually has been diagnosed with any of this stuff, then it also can kind of help explain some of the behaviors. You had an in-depth convo today with someone in recovery. What I learned about this was eye-opening. Something I knew, some you were like, yeah, WTF. Yeah, if you have never been around somebody in active addiction, it's hard to fully understand. I'm very skirted by how I talk about the active addiction I have seen because it's not my story to tell. But I have said, and I will say now, my husband and I have worked closely with family members who were in active addictions on some really hardcore serious drugs. I also, being from the professions that I have had, I have always worked closely with people who are in addiction in different levels of degree in each of the jobs that I have held in my profession. And I know I had a couple of critical comments on one of my videos about this situation because I didn't state what my background is. I have a bachelor's in social work and a minor in child welfare. I worked with the Department of Children and Families for 3.5 years as a child protective investigator, investigating the A word and the N word and abandonment of kids. And then in my last job, I worked a little bit over a year in a pre-diversion program where it was my job to be their case manager and assist them into getting into recovery and sobriety, as well as holding them accountable to the courts. So I was like a dual role where I was a probation officer and a case management, in the sense of helping them, finding the resources for them, helping them get into rehabs if that was what was necessary, and things like that. So I have worked very closely. I have seen all levels and stages of addiction and recovery and sobriety for like the past 5 years. So that's the only reason why I feel comfortable having some of the conversations that I do have with you guys, is because I've seen stuff in my personal life dealing with family, and I have also worked professionally with a lot of the stuff that we talk about that's more serious. There's a program waiting for her, and that doesn't shock me. That doesn't shock me that there are facilities who have, whether it's people who know her in real life or otherwise, who have contacted places in hopes that it'll be ready when she's ready. But that's the thing, she has to be ready. And right now she clearly isn't ready. She says all the time in the last few lives that I have seen replayed, she says when people start spamming her chat with "you need help, get help" and stuff like that, she adamantly says she doesn't want it. I appreciate that, Sarah. You worked for CPS for over 5 years. You had to go to training, obviously, about this. Exactly. And people don't really understand the training that goes behind working for CPS. And I think it's probably because it differs everywhere. And also just the stereotype and social, like, bad things that people say, bad interactions people have had with the department, really can curve people's awareness or education or understanding about CPS. But you're trained very similarly to like forensic interviewers and law enforcement, or at least that's how my training went. Yeah, YouTube is weird about that word. I don't think they catch so much on neglect, but the other word, most times I'll say it anyways, but I'm trying to be mindful. So as far as updates, like I said in my previous videos, and my stance will continue to be, I'm going to always allow us to have conversations about stuff, people, things that you guys want to talk about. Just some things I won't be covering in actual like pre-recorded content, but just because I don't talk about it in a video doesn't mean I don't know about it and have opinions about it, and B, that I'm not open to having conversations. Yeah, the trainings only prepare you so much. So just keep that in mind. And like I said, this went over pretty well. So I'll probably do this Friday recap for a couple of weeks and see how it goes. I'm going to be posting the poll for Monday's open discussion later today. So keep an eye on the community tab for that. if you ever want to reach out to me, my email is always linked, as well as I believe my Twitter is always linked. So you can always reach out to me on any of those social media platforms. I have an Instagram. I can't log into it from the computer to pull the link. I forgot my password, so that's fun. But I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I appreciate everybody who's hung out and who has talked with me about these things. Feel free, like I said, I know a couple of people asked if they could reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to me if you would like to talk about anything, or if you come across anything and you want to see if I would be interested in making a video. Feel free. Sometimes there's there's stories and stuff that happens that I think about making videos about, but I don't because I don't know if people would want them, so to speak. I try to make content that I know you guys would enjoy. But I appreciate you all, and I hope you guys all have a good rest of your Friday. Thank you for being here, Mental Block, and I'm glad you enjoyed being here. I hope everyone has a good rest of your day, evening, or night, wherever you guys are. And until next time, bye, guys.